Hello, Cupcakes! It is Wednesday, it's New Comic Book Day, so we've got another stack of books for you to review. We've got some Absolute Green Arrow, we've got Deathstroke, we've got Lobo. So let's Kung Fury this shit and stay tuned. Bam! Okay, so we start off things with Absolute Green Arrow. So this is by Pornchak of Good Asian fame. Rafael Albuquerque, who's done work with Scott Snyder on American Vampire. So already it's a great creative team to begin with. This design of Green Arrow is amazing. What you need to know before going into this particular issue, and this would be like a potential spoiler, is what happened in the events of Absolute Evil, the one-shot issue that DC Comics released a couple of months ago, right? So in that issue, basically your Oliver Queen, who's your OG Green Arrow, is killed by the Legion of Doom, the Absolute Legion of Doom, right? And so this, we don't know who this Green Arrow is, right? And that's where we start off the story with, right? So you got a new Green Arrow and he's been wasting fools left, right, and center. So he's been after all these rich billionaires, rich but evil billionaires, right? And he's like slicing and dicing them off. So that's one part of the story. The other part of the story, and that's basically the main part of it, is you have Diana Lance, our Black Canary, our absolute Diana Lance, absolute Black Canary. And she was an ex-cop before, and she was also an MMA fighter. And she's now a hired, mercenary, hired bodyguard, right? So she is hired on this job by Malcolm Merlyn to protect Hector Hammond, because they feel that this new Green Arrow, unknown Green Arrow, is going to attack Hector Hammond, right? So that's where the story, that's the premise of the story. And it's been executed really well. There's a lot of character moments, like, with Diana Lance, because most of the story moves through her eyes, right? And at the same time, you've got whenever the action kicks in, it's like fantastic, like, so you want more of it. So, so from a Green Arrow perspective, I love his design. Like I said, I love his new weapon too. So this is his bow, and you can remove, it can dismantle and he can make it into like these two machetes, and then he can slice and dice people, right? So action is kinetic, action is dynamic. There's a lot of great character moments also. A little bit too much for my taste, but then overall in a good and bad world, this worked for me. Again, artwork is 10 out of 10. Like Rafael Albuquerque is like doing the best work of his life, no. But I just want to see like more of this. Less of the character moments, but obviously that adds a lot of weight to the story. So again, I've been digging this, I'll buy issue 2 of this definitely, but that's Absolute Green Arrow issue number 1 for you guys. Okay, the next book is probably my favorite next level book. That is Deathstroke, the Terminator. This is by Tony Fleeces and Carmine Giandomenico. And this cover is a variant cover by Brad Walker. So it looks so amazing. He's wiping off the blood like a samurai from his other arm. So gorgeous cover. And then, the story is basically like Deathstroke has lost everything. So his money is taken away from him. Most of his weaponry is taken away from him. All his like hideouts have been destroyed by this unknown secret person. And now all the authorities, there is like a bounty on him. So every assassin out there is basically gunning for him, right? So it's kind of like Deathstroke in a John Wick situation. And so this issue particularly focuses on the characters of Deathblow and Floyd Lawton Deadshot, who are basically hunting him down, right? And they've been hired by this unknown mercenary assailant to kill Deathstroke. And Deathstroke is basically, the whole issue is about an all-out war between the 3 characters, right? And Deathstroke basically wanting to find out from these two, like, who's the person like who's responsible for all of this? Who's that guy who's like completely hates Deathstroke so much to go above and beyond to eliminate everything about Deathstroke, right? And again, it's a great story, right? Great action. Tony Fleece's dialogue is on par, and Carmine Giandomenico's action sequences are amazing. It's like a 90s action movie, and it just, there is also this flashback scene wherein you have Deathstroke, addressing all these League of Assassins and, basically giving them like a code, like some rules to do. If you're all in the assassin business, then you need to follow these set of rules. Some things like, like if I have a contract, then the other assassin, you should not be taking the same contract and you should respect our boundaries and stuff. So overall, I give this a 10 on 10, amazing book. Amazing artwork, amazing story, amazing action. If you're not reading this, then it's your fault and not Tony Fleece's fault at this point. This is that good, right? So again, Deathstroke issue number 3, guys. Amazing book. Okay, next we have Lobo issue 3. This is by Scotty Young, Baldari, and Jorge Corona doing the art. So in the previous issues, we've seen like Lobo is hired and fired by this organization, which is basically Netflix, because they've taken over all the bounty hunting business and they now run the bounty hunting shows, right? So all they want to make it into a reality show. So initially Lobo is like, yeah, this is a great opportunity for me. But then he decides like, okay, this is not working for me. So he quits. But to stay in the bounty hunting business, he has to take this psychological evaluation by this Dr. Bixwell, who's basically this face who pops up on a camcorder, kind of on a floating camcorder basically, and then he needs to answer all his questions, right? So he basically asks him like, have you experienced any significant traumatic life events and all? And Lobo mentions that he lost his entire planet because he's a Zarian, right? And so he lost all of Zarina, right? So, and then you go into a little bit of a backstory, and then the art style changes because it's a backstory, right? About young Lobo, a kid Lobo, who's like a total brat, right? He's a problem child. He causes all sorts of ruckus. And then finally, you get to the conclusion of this psychological evaluation, which is fantastic, which is kinetic, and it's very funny, right? Ultimately. And it's basically Scotty Young having a lot of fun, with all these kooky characters and all these funny storylines, right? Yeah, so this book has been good. The only thing is like the change in the artwork could be a little bit jarring, because this backstory I thought would be like 3-4 pages, but it goes on for a while, right? And it is good, right? The story is funny and it is humorous. It's amazing to see like what Lobo does, what kind of like chaos he causes on this planet. But yeah, but then it concludes. So other than that, other than the change of the art style, I think overall the book is really good, right? Totally worth your time. But that's DC Next Level Lobo issue number 3 for you guys. All right, let's jump on to Image. From Image Comics, we have Battle Beast. This is by Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley. This is issue number 9. Again, you buy this for the great action. You buy this for the great, similar to Deathstroke. This is another book that is killing it, because every issue is just action-packed. Starts off with great battles, and then there are a lot of blood and guts, and Ryan Ottley is basically, why you're buying this book, right? So look at this panel, right? This is amazing Ryan Ottley artwork, right? This is basically this whole city that they're celebrating, like, their victory, their oppression and all. Look at the next panel here. It's amazing artwork. Like, so Ryan Ottley is killing it on this, really, really good stuff. And the story is basically now, Battle Beast has to fight like this brother and sister duo to liberate this planet. So he already killed the brother character, and now he has to take on the sister character, and his whole eternal wish is like, that somebody defeats him in battle so that he can have a warrior's death, right? So that's the whole thing. And so does he get it or not? We'll have to read to find out. But again, like I said, great artwork, great character building and great dynamics, but that's Battle Beast issue number 9 for you guys. All right, then we have G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. No, this is just G.I. Joe. This is by Joshua Williamson and Andrea Molina. This is issue 22. So this happens after the Dreadnought War storyline. And basically what happens in this is like Cobra Commander asks Destro to go to this location in London where they have like a lot of energon left. So it's not London. He basically sends them to this land called Badikistan. I think it's basically a fictional country where they have to, he asks Destro to assemble his best people. So, and then to go and get this energon reserve, right? In this like haunted kind of town. And so at the same time, the G.I. Joe team gets the same intel. So they show up and there's a big confrontation. So the G.I. Joe team is, you get your Stalker, you get Risk, and you get Baroness. And from the Destro side of things, you have Chameleon, you've got Mercer, his main henchman, and Destro himself, right? So you get Chameleon, Destro, and Mercer. And it's a showdown. And what this issue does, other than this main fight between these 6 guys, is also... they throw a little bit of horror into the mix, because Joshua Williamson is no stranger to horror, right? So he's done stuff like Ghosted, he's done stuff like What is it called? His Dark Ride is one of them, and Nailbiter. Yeah, that's the thing I was trying to remember. So Nailbiter. So he throws in a lot of horror elements because apparently this Badkistan place is completely haunted, right? So there's a little bit of supernatural thrown into the mix between this G.I. Joe Cobra Commander confrontation, and it perfectly works. And Andrea Milana's artwork is 100%, fits the style of the story, right? So again, issue 32, it's still connecting, it's still dynamic, still, doing all the right things. But this is G.I. Joe issue number 22 for you guys. Total recommendation. Okay. Next, we have Doug Wagner and Daniel Hilliard. This is Narco issue number 3. So this is about this dude who has basically narcolepsy. So what that means is that whenever he's afraid, his heart rate goes high and he faints, right? In any kind of like anxiety-ridden situation, I would say. And so he invites this girl up on a date. So she comes to his apartment, but he's about to open the door, but then somebody comes and murders her, right? And she dies. And then he faints because that's his condition. And then he wakes up, then there's cops all over the place and all, and they think he's the prime suspect for this, right? But he's not, right? So he's being interrogated, but at the same time by the police. But he also wants to find out like who killed, this girl he liked so much. So he breaks into her apartment. He's on like all these crime blogs, trying to figure out like what's the best way to, figure out like who murdered her and all. And so at the same time, he's got this good cop, bad cop interrogating him. So she's the bad cop, like she's like completely convinced that he probably had something to do with it. On the other hand, you have this good cop. He's like, I don't think he did it, and he's trying to help him out, right? There is a new big revelation in this issue about one of his one of his close friend groups, and how one of them was connected to the person who was murdered, the girl who was murdered, and that kind of breaks some of his barriers. But it progresses the story. But this is more like a whodunit mystery. So this is still good. This is amazing. This is dynamic. The artwork is super fine, and Doug Wagner is building up this mystery, and we don't get the end here. I mean, we don't get like who the identity of the killer, but I think it's like a mini series. I think it's like 5 issues. So, but the build up has been really good, and I can't wait to find out like what happens in the next issue. But this is Narco issue number 3 for you guys. It's an Alfred Hitchcock homage cover, and they're killing it on this. Okay, the last book we have is probably a top pick of the week for a lot of people. This is Odin. This is by Marguerite Bennett and James Tinian IV, right? So this is about like this girl Adele. I think she basically joins this group. They are basically a white supremacist cult, and and they're taking a trip to the mountains basically to resurrect Odin, because they feel that if they resurrect Odin, then that's basically going to bring them, I don't know, peace or something. And again, the artwork is pretty brilliant here. The art is done by Letizia Cardonici, never heard of her, but the Jordi Beller colors definitely work for this. They definitely elevate. So so the artwork is good. My problem with these James Tinian books is they throw a lot of these characters on your face. So the same thing was done in Nice House on the Lake. Same thing was done in like Exquisite Corpses. So they throw all these generic characters on your face. So you've got Austin, Emma, Dylan, Tanner, Kevin, Caitlin, Robert, Fred, and the main character, and then you don't remember any of them by the second issue, because a lot of time has progressed. I don't know who is who, and I just read their names, right? That's my biggest problem with this. I do like the through line where it goes and how it concludes the story of them finding Odin and what happens and the twists and turns. But I don't relate with any of these characters, and that's my biggest problem with James Tinian books. So I don't know, it's just a me problem or other people also have this problem. But overall, like in a world where we like give thumbs up and thumbs down, I give this book a thumbs up. I really liked it. The artwork is fine. The cover, the storyline, the through line of the story is good, but the characters are all generic as always, right? And that's something probably JT4 probably needs to fix. Otherwise, because by the time I'm in like issue 6 of this, I don't remember any of these people, right? So but again, overall I dug it. And this is the last book. This is Odin issue 1 for you. And that brings us to the end of the video, guys. If you have any questions, any comments, any queries on any of these books, please drop into the chat. Like, what are the new books you picked up? I would love to know that. And at the same time, follow us on Instagram or follow us on Facebook as well, right? So we're doing great content on Instagram. It's basically short form content. If you don't prefer the long form content like this, we do short form content there. So please check it out. The links are all in the description below. And guys, take care, and I'll check you out in the next one. Thanks.